Hi everybody, this is Craig Tanner for The Mindful Eye and the Daily Critique. This image was submitted by Peter, who's an intermediate photographer. We have the backstory and the metadata on this one. This is a portrait of Peter's daughter. It says he put her in the swing and she was having a great time and he started taking a lot of pictures. He took about 20 shots. This was his favorite. He said the funny thing about this one is he doesn't really remember this expression and is not even quite sure what his daughter is looking at here. He was just kind of surprised to see this one when he was browsing the images after the shoot. And the metadata here is that Peter shot this with a Nikon D80, effective focal length of about 30 millimeters, semi-wide, and at ISO 100 exposed the file at f3.5 for a 1/100th of a second. One of the neat things about our new submission forms for the Daily Critique is there's a lot more information that we are sort of asking you to include and spaces to do that. So hopefully it'll make the critiques more interesting. I know a little bit more about the images. There's a place where the person submitting can ask a question or just sort of generally comment on what they were trying to accomplish with the image. And all that's embedded, and I get all of it at one time, which is very different than the way things used to work. And so would love for you to share an image with the whole community with us on the Daily Critique, and to check out our new submission forms for submitting images to the Mindful Eye. In the question area, Peter said, hey, I'd like to know what you think about the chain on the swing and whether that's competing with my daughter's face. So we'll come back to that question in just a minute. One of the things I like right away about this image is just how beautifully Peter's daughter is separating from the background. That's happening for a variety of reasons. Going back to the metadata, Peter shot this at a very wide open aperture, and he's shooting semi-wide here. For his daughter to be this big in the frame with this wide angle of a view, he's pretty close. So the combination of having a subject that's pretty close to the lens that Peter's focusing on and the wide open aperture has created a shallow depth of field, even with this wide angle lens. This is very soft and the portrait subject is sharp. That helps separation to happen. The quality of light is helping separation. We've got this really beautiful, what looks like maybe an overcast day, this kind of feeling of a big soft box, really soft light that's flowing across the face, great catch light, but the background seems to be in shade, so light and dark. And also color. Color is helping this to separate. Pretty simple from a color design standpoint. A lot of greens and dark greens and some whites back here, and then a lot of the exciting color, the warm tones, reds, oranges, and then complements of colors, warm and cool and warm and cool. That's all happening up here on the portrait subject. And so I love the way there's separation. Something else to just mention here real quick is that when we're shooting portraits, something that can really help us if we want separation is a scene like this where the background in physical reality is a ways behind the portrait subject. And one of the things I say when I'm teaching people photography or portraiture to photographers is that in a lot of respects an ideal situation for shooting any kind of portrait is the potential for a lot of space, both behind the portrait subject to the background, and the potential to have a lot of space in front of the portrait subject where you can either back up a long way if you want to, put on a long lens and shoot like that, or come in and get close. Something else that I really like about this image is the expression. I mean, to me, it's in so many respects what's carrying the image and making it a great image. And so I want to say two things about that. One, relative to the metadata. Remember, Peter said he doesn't even remember taking this. I mean, one of the powers of shooting digital is it's free in terms of, what used to be a big expense of just the film and processing. And I encourage photographers when they're shooting people in a candid way to do what I call overshoot. Shoot a lot more than you normally do. One thing that I would mention, just one technique, is we can be shooting a person in a candid way, and then we can decide that we want to take a little bit of a break or talk to the portrait subject or look around, and we can come out from behind the camera and immediately quit shooting. And one technique that you can use to increase the chances that you will capture these micro expressions or these things that happen so fast that you can't even really remember them is that when you come out from behind the camera, to practice keeping the camera in the last camera position for a few seconds and go ahead and keep shooting for another 2 or 3 or 4 seconds as you come back. That way you're just getting more shots. And the idea here when you're shooting candidly is to take a lot of pictures. The other thing that I want to mention about the expression is looking up. Very, very powerful. Let's say if we're just starting to direct people. Here it just happened in a candid way, but looking up gets light into the eyes, which can be really powerful. Looking up stretches the mask of the face. Peter's daughter doesn't need to look any younger here, but for people that are old like me, looking up can make people look more youthful. Looking up empowers people. When we look up, a lot of times our emotional state will follow the upward gaze, and we'll feel better about being ourselves and being in front of the camera. So looking up can be a real powerful thing to direct people to do, or just shooting high to low so that people sort of have to look up to see you. The other thing that I really like about this image is rhythm, repetition. And that's one of the reasons why I like the chain. So let's talk about the chain for a minute. The reflective quality of the chain rhymes the shape and the quality of light in the eyes. It also rhymes the out of focus circles of light back here called bokeh. So there's a really beautiful design rhythm to me with the idea of the chain that's happening. And you see it in here too, which is really super cool. There's also a conceptual thing from a rhythm standpoint that works with the chain. Peter's daughter is looking up, and for me as the viewer, it makes me wonder, hey, what is up there, or who's up there? And the gesture of reaching to the chain and the chain coming up and going out of the frame and following the gaze, to me really adds this very powerful feeling of a whole nother layer of depth that happens in my imagination relative to this image. So I love the chain here. I can't imagine the image without it. And there's some other really cool rhythms, just in terms of space shapes that are being applied and quality of line. Really cool complementary pair of rhythms there. Really cool complement of rhythm here, just sort of a bookend kind of thing that's happening. You see that shape happening quite a bit in this image. When it comes to perfect world improvement for this one, this is one where some digital gardening of high contrast areas that are competing with one of the main subjects really makes a big difference in this image to my eye. These little areas of high contrast bokeh are on par or in the same line of sight as the main subject, the eyes. And it's really taking away from the eyes as the main subject. If we just clean those up, it's sort of amazing the difference that just that small change makes to simplify the image. And then the last thing I'm going to do here is really sort of several adjustments on one layer. I'm going to try to make color sing a little bit. This is an image that already has a very powerful feeling of dramatic color, and I'm going to sort of push that a little bit more and clean color up, and here's what I'm talking about doing. There's quite a bit of blue in the shadows in the face and here too, and on the sweater. I want to make this go more towards blue, this more towards red, this more towards a pure feeling of yellow. Same with the hair. I want to get more green out of the background, but I want to do it in a way where I'm going to accentuate some of those shapes that we've already talked about rhyming in the image. One other thing I want to do is get rid of this blue-orange complementary color pair. I want to make that orange right there using hue saturation harmonized with the red. So we simplify this from a color standpoint. To me, this is creating a little bit of a color clash. It's a third complementary color pair that started to overwhelm me as the viewer, even though it's really subtle. Red and green is already there. Cyan and red's already there. And I don't know about blue and orange in that context, so I'm going to change that. Here's the layer where I made all those changes. One other quick thing before I turn this on and off, I also lightened Peter's daughter's face quite a bit. So here are all those changes. Turn that on and off a couple of times. Here's where we started. Sorry about that. Let me try that one more time. Here's where we started, and here is where we ended up. And one of the things that really helped me to edit this image is some of the new features in CS4. And so watch the Digital Darkroom this week, and you're going to see me do a quick tutorial on some of the really cool upgrades to CS4 that, for me as a user, have really enhanced my user experience of Photoshop. I want to say huge thank you to Peter for submitting this beautiful portrait of his daughter to the Mindful Eyes Daily Critique. See you tomorrow, everybody.